Now, one area of the country where people might feel like housing is too unaffordable, even though to the rest of us, like in Florida or California or New York, might think it's just extremely cheap, is the Midwest, guys. I've been telling people that if you want to be able to afford a home, the Midwest is where it's at right now. And I still think that's true. However, the caveat to that is, for a lot of people, if you're moving to the Midwest from a more expensive market. Because if you're somebody who lives there now, that might not be the case. Or really, not just the Midwest, but all of rural America. Like, here's what I mean. The median rural home price jumped 61% from 2019 to 2025, from $175,000 to $281,000. And this actually jumped up higher than the suburban and urban price growth of 49% and 46% respectively. That's quite a bit of a clip higher. The affordability crisis is actually hitting folks out in the sticks more than people who live in more suburban or urban areas. And a lot of this is due to the same reasons that everything else went up. During the pandemic, a lot of people looked to move to cheap rural areas for a couple of different reasons. They were able to do remote work, so they could work from anywhere, still make a high income and easily afford it. A lot of people were also scared and wanted to get away and be able to be more self-sufficient and sort of live off grid, so to speak. And the thing about rural areas is there tends to be just less homes in general. There's just less homes available and even fewer homes for sale. And a lot of local buyers have to compete against each other and out-of-state buyers. And the result is those home prices have surged beyond what the rural incomes can support. So for example, the salary needed to afford a rural home has now doubled. In 2019, you only had to make $36,000 a year to be able to buy a house in the middle of nowhere. Now today it's $75,000 a year, guys. And we know most people living in these areas have not seen that kind of a pay raise. They just haven't. That's a 106% increase in income required, but the median rural household income is sitting at around $70,000. So it's still a little bit below where it needs to be, which means people need to stretch themselves financially to become a homeowner in these areas, or they have to settle for something that doesn't really fit their needs or wants. And we know it's out-of-towners who are driving up prices in a lot of these rural areas because according to Fannie Mae mortgage data, the mortgage applications in rural areas continue to be above pre-pandemic levels, but the pool of local applications has not recovered since the pandemic. So you have more people buying there still, and fewer than ever are locals, which means people are moving there from out of town. Here's an example from New Hampshire. The required income to afford a median home, which has gone up 141% since 2019, now requires a whopping $120,000 per year. And also surrounding states in Vermont and Maine are experiencing similar major affordability jumps. And I'm not surprised to hear that, especially in the Northeast, because the Northeast is one of the markets that's still holding up the best, and you're still seeing price growth in that market. But also, that's where a lot of old money is in the United States. There's a lot of generational wealth in the Northeast and a lot of people who earn serious money that have some sort of income that's tied to New York City. And for people in rural Vermont, they're not going to be able to compete with somebody who makes $600K a year in New York City and can work remotely half the year.